Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad Podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nuggets to help you on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the Fatherhood Authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to I Am Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Thank you again for joining us as we continue to have such special guests and talking about fatherhood as it relates to either doing the work of responsible fatherhood, talking to great dads, talking to people who are inspired by their dads, talking to folks who are inspired by being dads, wherever there is a fatherhood theme in anything that I see, I believe it's a subject of necessity for I Am Dad Podcast. And today's conversation is no different from that. My three guests today is Bweela Steptoe. She is a literacy advocate and workshop presenter. Her mission is to educate and share the legacy of her father, John Lewis Steptoe, the award-winning children's books author and illustrator with the world. And we're going to talk about a book that he wrote and an exciting project around that book. I also have Taryn Janelle, is a multidisciplinary and creative who works in the intersections of art, education, and business. Over 30 years in the theater, she has worn hats as a director, actor, choreographer, producer, and arts director. And then I have Laurel Ross, who is here in Atlanta. He's a musician, born in Camden, New Jersey, the suburbs of New York, as we like to say. He traveled to Atlanta to study music at Morehouse College with a concentration in vocal performance. And you can see all of their complete bios on our website where the podcast will be hosted. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Wonderful.
So here's how I start all of my podcasts before we even get into the subject matter. And I'd like, and I want Taryn, you to go first, and then Laurel, and then you, Bweela, because we're going to go into a conversation after you ask this question. But I ask everybody on the show that comes to this show, what's your daddy story?
Okay. So, well, my father, I love my daddy's story. My dad is from Detroit and then moved to Alabama where I was born. So we very much were and my mom is from the South. So we very much were a family of Southerners with this Northerner kind of dropped into that situation. And that played out in a variety of different ways, from the temperature in the house to the way that we saw the world. But what it also did is really infused him because his own mother was a musician and worked with Motown artists and toured with Motown. So he had a love of music and a love of all things arts. And even though he grew up to be an engineer, and I am from an engineering town in Alabama, and that's both my parents were engineers. He is a creative. We grew up singing karaoke together, and I learned how to harmonize with my dad. I have a love of music because of my father. So the first thing I did, even in this project, he's heard all the music already. In fact, because I value his opinion very much. The father-daughter relationship, life is what it is, and it has ebbs and flows, and the complications and challenges and joys and loves. But music has always been the thing that has brought us together. And so we still have that connection just today. I was just speaking to him this morning. I love him very much.
Nice. Thank you for that story. Laurel?
Well, for me, I'm one of 8. Huge family, huge family. And my father is by no stretch a musician. but he knows good music. He knows good music. And he kind of helped incorporate in me to really, really my love for music. And even further than that, with me being one of 8, you can imagine with us doing music, we were a band, we were a choir, and all of that. And a lot of it came from my father's just playing good music. And then from there, I kind of took it upon myself. Ooh, I hear this. I like this. Hey, you sing this, or you play this, and I'll play this. And then from there, it really kind of helped put me on my path of being a musician overall, as a composer, as a vocalist, as a pianist overall. So he played through his good taste in music. He played a good role in my development, or at least inspired me to pursue music full time.
Nice. Bweela, my homie, talk to me about
Father story. Oh gosh, I have so many father stories. Well, I'll give the snippet. I'll give one father story. Well, basically, my father and I have definitely had a love-hate relationship. I love my father very much, and I know he loves me very much, and that's clear because I'm in me as well as my brother are in a lot of his books, but particularly I am in Mufaro's, and I'll tell you a story about that. So what when he was after he did Mufaro's, and when he did Mufaro's, I was 12 years old. So a lot of the images, most of the images are from me being 12 years old. And so I think like during my teenage years, I was like, Daddy, do you think I'm ugly? He's like, do you think I put an ugly girl on the cover of my book? So I was just like, oh, okay. So I was like, okay, thank you. So that's the type of relationship we had. We had a very like down to earth relationship. My father is this like, I could talk to him like a friend. A lot of times people thought he was my boyfriend. I was like, ew, no, he's my father. We were always joking and laughing and playing with each other, and he taught me a lot of stuff. And the one thing that he taught me that he probably be like laughing right now at me because I'm actually admitting that I actually learned something from him, is that like you have whatever you want to do in life, you have to like it. You have to get up. Like he always said to me, whatever you do, make sure you want to get up and do it. Like make sure you want to get up every day and do this thing because this is something you are going to be doing. And definitely he loved what he did. He loved creating books. He loved creating stories. He loved telling stories. He loved sharing stories. He loved art. He loved art. He did not know how to draw. When he first started drawing, he had no idea. He didn't know how to draw at all. Mm-hmm. And I thought growing up with my father and my brother and my mother, they all went to art and design. They all knew how to draw. They all just like, it just seemed like the images just flowed out of their fingers. So for me, it wasn't like that. But what he told me is that you have to practice. You have to practice, because he showed me images of his drawings when he could not draw. And I was like, wow, you really couldn't draw. But he kept practicing because he really loved drawing. So it just went from, that scribble to that beautiful image where it almost looks like it's a painting. I mean, like a photograph, like he took a photograph of you. And so that shows the passion that he had in what he was doing. And then it also shows the love that he had for his children, and the love he had for me because of the fact that he incorporated us in a lot of his work. And just the love for his family in general, because a lot of his stories are based on, like the first story, Stevie, is based on his mother, my grandmother, taking care of other children. So most of the stories that my father wrote had family, because the family was important to him.
Yeah, I believe in the echoes of the father. I'm actually writing a book now entitled that, Echoes of the Father. And what I mean by that is that there are things that we do in life that we project out into the world that creates an echo of our Father's voice that reminds us that no matter how we might think of him, whether or not he was a part of our life or not a part of our life, that his voice is always speaking to us and we're always reverberating his spirit in our life, regardless of the relationship that we have. So that reverberation can be negative and positive, but the echo is real. And it happens with our mothers too, but since we're talking about fathers, because oftentimes we don't think that, or individuals that do not have the pleasure or have not had the pleasure of their father's presence in their lives, does not mean that they don't have the existence of their fathers in their lives, right? So that presence, no matter where it is, can have an impact on your life, which is why I love talking to folks who are in the creative space, who are doing things around specifically fatherhood, because we don't typically, in my work, get a chance to talk about and have great stories, which is why I make everyone start off with their daddy story. And all the daddy stories are different. Sometimes they're beautiful, like these three. Sometimes, like in a conversation I had not too long ago, I cried the entire interview because it was that kind of echo that was echoing in this person's life. But Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters, An African Tale, is such, and I've read that book before, but when I was brought back to it again and I actually sat down and peacefully read it again, it just reminded me of the beauty and the influence that fathers specifically have on girls, right? And how that resonates in his life. When you guys began to start thinking about creating the play off of this book, why was it out of all the books that he has written, you narrowed in on this one?
Answer that. So synchronicity in general, well, first of all, we always base our family series, the series that involves stories that are for families, on books. So as we are searching through the stories to tell, what stories are available to tell, what books resonated with us when we were children, what stories do we think will resonate with our larger audience? And Mufaro's was one of those ones that, you know, I grew up with. I am born just before the book came out. And so it was a book that was naturally in the schools that I was going to at that time, because it was the book of that time. So I remembered it. And when we saw that it was a title that could be, you know, used, it was very much a let's find this, let's see, you know, what is this bit of memory coming back? What does this look like? And Bweela is really easy to find. It's very reachable, approachable. So when our producer, as the producer Synchronicity, was able to reach out to her, she was just so loving and giving and willing to kind of share that story with us. So it was really just a process of, hey, I remember this thing. I love this thing. Is this even possible to move forward with? And with Bweela on board, and as much care as she has given to this particular story, but you know, John's legacy in altogether, it was really just kind of kismet. It all the pieces fit together.
Bweela, would you describe yourself as a daddy's girl?
Definitely am a daddy's girl. I mean, my father talked to me about everything. I mean, and it's funny because I talked to him about things that, like, he would bring up things to me that my mother was never talked to me about. So I definitely, yes. Well, and also I'm his only daughter, so I don't know if that matters too. But I am his only daughter, and I'm the firstborn, and I got to, you know, like I said, I think we bumped heads so much. I just found out that my moon rising, I think, is the same sign as his, so I think that that's probably why we bumped heads a lot. But at the same token, it was like we still got along really, really well, and I was still able to talk to him about a lot of things that I couldn't talk to him with my mother about. And he was the one that talked to me about sex. He's the one that talked to me about birth control. He's the one that talked to me about boys. He's the one that talked to me about wearing makeup. So it's like, I definitely can say I'm a daddy's girl, and I know that when I was born, I got to go to Mississippi University, and they have the letter that he sent one of his teachers when I was born, and it was just like, it was so exciting, and it felt really good to like just to read the letter and to see how excited he was about becoming a father and about me being his daughter, and just the fact that the next book he did, he did it dedicated to me, which was Uptown, because that was the same year I was born. So it's just like, with all the love hate, it was definitely clear how much he really loved me.
They often say that in the arts, when you use New York City as the backdrop, that New York City comes in as a character, even though it's not a character. Like whatever you see filmed in New York City should have a credit as being a character, because it brings its own personality to the space. Unlike any other city in the world, New York City brings a character to the space. Being that you guys are born and raised in Brooklyn, Brooklyn also brings a very different character to the space when it comes to work. And as I was reading the book, Bweela, I was looking at it knowing that the backdrop of the book was Africa, but the backdrop of that book could have been Brooklyn, had the same sentiment. Like it was in there. And so when you think about your dad's writing and you think about what you were surrounded by in terms of environment in Brooklyn, how much of that life growing up and living in Brooklyn was a part of your father's writings?
Well, I mean, a huge part. Like the first couple of books that he wrote and illustrated had to do with Brooklyn. I mean, Stevie was done like I said, it was based on the story of my grandmother babysitting other children and my uncle, who was the youngest child, being jealous of her spending time with the other children or paying attention to the other children instead of always focusing on him. If you see in the story, there's a part where the kids are playing outside and it says 848, and that's where we live, 840 and 848 Monroe Street. So it's like that's that. In Uptown, it talks about Uptown, but it talks about Brooklyn, but it talks about just black people in general and how they perceive their situation and what they were going through at the time. Train ride, definitely Brooklyn, because it starts off in Brooklyn at the train station, Gates Avenue, and they all hop the train. Like they go over the gate, which was is closed off now, as far as I know. But it's closed off, and they snuck on the train that way, got on the J train, and went. If you know anything about Brooklyn and the J train, the first stop in Manhattan is Essex Street. So then there's a scene there in the book with it says Essex Street on it. And the kids are, sitting on a bench waiting for the train to go back home. So Brooklyn is definitely in my father. We can't get out of it. And what I remember, the image that it said, be it ever so dangerous, there's no place like home. So even though everybody thinks how at that time Bed-Stuy was dangerous, right? So, but it's still his home. He's, like he would talk about, like, he would go off to these speeches and award ceremonies, and when he come back, he's just back in the hood with the regular, with the guys. It's like they don't look at him as this big, great, famous author or illustrator. He's just, he's just another brother hanging out with them.
Laurel, every great movie that has come out of Brooklyn comes out with a strong soundtrack. Brooklyn, Do the Right Thing, Notorious, all of those were specifically filmed in Bedford-Stuyvesant. and all of them have extremely strong soundtracks.
Oh,
I don't want
absolutely.
to put pressure on you, bro, but what is the soundtrack to Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters? And talk to me about what inspired you to create the songs that you guys created for the play.
Absolutely. Well, first off, the music, the music from Mufaro's Beautiful Daughter, the musical that we wrote, was not just me, but Karen and I both. So we collaborated in a pretty unique way where initially it started off where she was responsible for the lyrics of the music, lyrics of the song, and I was responsible for the music and the composition. But it kind of morphed into something where we collaborated in a really beautiful way. And going into it, Mufaro's Beautiful Daughter was a story that was in my house growing up. And so I also was familiar with it. And so I wanted to approach this, transforming this story to a musical in a way that is true to the essence of the story, by way of the narrative, by way of the setting, and things like that. And it did, but also blend that into the world of theater, so that I can blend the two worlds into a way that is palatable for all those who listen to it and see it. And so with that, a lot of the rhythms and a lot of the instrumentation that is used, there's a lot of acoustic sounds, a lot of African drums and things of that nature. And interesting, our first session, Karen and I, our first session together, I went and I looked up some sayings and some proverbs from Zimbabwe. And one of them, the very first one that we came across was one that said, if you can walk, you can dance. And if you can talk, you can sing. Beautiful proverb. And it was from there, and translating that into Shona, the language of Shona, which is one of the languages in Zimbabwe. It was from that, the melody and the music kind of just birthed from there in such an honest way, that from there it really just catapulted and shot the rest of the music that we did into where it came into what I believe to be a really, really beautiful sound overall. Not just music, but something that elevates the entire story and this particular field of musical theater, that is one, true to the story and the setting of the story, but also puts it in a world that makes it beautiful and understanding the story understandable for all who come to see it.
Well, you know, the storyline of the book where you have two daughters taking different paths is just a beautiful story in and of itself, right? Particularly when a dad involved. Taryn, when you look at, you know, the choreography and the music that you and Laurel was putting together, did you give thought to the fact that this was a story that could really be empowering to girls?
Oh, most definitely. Well, the theme or the mission of Synchronicity is to uplift the voices of women and girls. So definitely seeing the power that these young ladies have, it just from the book that John wrote, is the main reason why, you know, we ended up choosing this story at this time, right? Like it is part of our mission. But myself, I am a mother of two daughters, so I am keenly aware of the dynamics that can come out of that, and so I love the fact that despite the very different points of view that these ladies have, Mufaro never lets them stray too far away from one another. Nyasha is very much keeps them tied together, like they're always tied together, even at the very end. You know, it didn't turn out the way Manyara thought, but they still ended up together at the end, and I love that. Even if it wasn't the way that they envisioned at the beginning, it's beautiful.
Bweela, in your journey, in your own life, did you ever think or give thought to that your life would be surrounded by continuing to keep alive and uplift the work of your dad?
Well, I get yes and no. Yeah. I say yes because, you know, my father died when I was 19, so that's, you know, pretty young to experience. And even he was 38, so that's pretty young. Because when I turned 38, I was like, wow. I was like, I felt like that was really young. I mean, it is. And when I was growing up with him, and just experiencing being his child, it was just like, more like that's what he did. It wasn't a big deal. And it was like, I want to play, and he wants to take pictures of me, and I have to play, and he's interrupted me to ask me to stand like this and do this, and what do you think of this, and what do you think of that? And I was just like, yeah, that's nice. And then, unfortunately, when he passed away, and everybody was like, oh my God, and then I saw like how other people reacted, and saw how, great this person was that got on my nerves half of the time. Then I was like, oh my gosh, this man is like really great. Like, I missed him as a father, and obviously I was sad as father, but as far as his career, I didn't really completely understand who he really, really was. And even though I would go with him places, and like I because of him, I got to meet James Baldwin. I still to this day cannot find the picture I have with James Baldwin, but we went to Miami, and I just wanted to go to Miami, but there was, but James Baldwin was there, so I got to meet him. And so, like, with all these experiences that I've had, it made me, and then a lot of them have been after he passed away, just finding out more about him and doing research, and having the honor to have, to still keep his legacy alive. I started realizing how important he was. Like, just even going on Facebook and having everyone say, wow, it's so great to have a book, to have someone on the book that looks like me, that looks like me, that looks like me, that looks like me. And at the same time, it's funny because I'm like thinking, as a teenager, I don't look so great, but everybody else is like, this woman is, this girl is beautiful. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I, like, even for my father, I wish he would have seen this. Like, I wish he could be absorbing this. So I feel like I have to absorb this stuff, and I have to keep it alive, because he planted the seed, and I have to just keep it going. So I definitely feel, as the older I get, the more mature I get. Being a mother, I have twins, and I think that's funny too that I have twins. And both of the girls, everybody asks me, what are the, which one are you? You're the mean one or the nice one? And I mean, I just said it depends on what day you get me. But it's not really about being mean or nice. It's just about different sides, because sometimes you don't want to share, right? You don't want to share. And then sometimes you want to share. So it's just like, I never asked him why he used me twice, but I know there's a reason why he did, but I have no idea. But maybe it's just to say too that maybe that's what he saw of me, the two sides of me, right? Because that's what it is. So definitely I feel honored, and I feel that it is part of my duty to keep the book alive, because my father worked really hard, and this is not his only book, right? He has 16 books, but this is the one that has been recognized the most. And it's kind of bittersweet, because it took him all this time to get this book, and then he finally gets this book, and then like 2 years later he passes away. So he didn't even really get the full, he just got the, the beginning part of the feeling of being recognized and being honored and being respected in the business that he was in, because that alone was a lot, because of, I mean, still today, the systematic racism in the publishing industry it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're talking to someone who has written 4 children's books. My own book, I just finished a graphic novel not too long ago. None of them were published by traditional publishers. I've self-published everything, because there are stories and narratives that I want to put out there into the space. When you think about your father and all the things that you've learned about him since his passing, what's the most inspiring thing you've heard about your father that you didn't hear or know from him?
I don't, there's so many things, but I think but I kind of already knew it, but I just really didn't. It wasn't a big deal to me, but I realized how much he was in pain, how much like pain he was in because of the fact of the systematic the systematic racism, because it was like, look at me, I'm great, I'm great, look at all this work I'm doing, I'm he was a pioneer in that sense, right? But the publishing companies didn't really want to see him like that. And then so to be able to continue to do what he was doing and to like be push up against the all of this stuff that he was going through, it was a lot for him. And so a lot of things make sense to me now, why he wasn't always happy, or why he, would do some of the things that he did, or why he felt uncomfortable about with certain things, or why he behaved in the manner that he behaved. Because my father is also gay. So of course you can't be black, you can't be gay, and you can't write children's books because it's too many. It's like, it's just not what you do, right? So you have to hide a lot. You can't really be who you are, like the language in the books, like when he used me and Javaka and my special best words, and we were naked because he was teaching us I was teaching my brother how to use the potty. You're not supposed to do that. And there were so many things that he was doing that you weren't supposed to do, but were real things. Like, daddy's a monster sometimes. It wasn't that he was a monster, but like sometimes the kids will look at their parents as monsters, right? Sometimes parents look at kids as monsters because they are sometimes, right? But those are the things that you're not supposed to talk about. So he talked about a lot of stuff that you weren't supposed to talk about and weren't supposed to deal with. So I realized how much he really went through in his life, being an artist and being a children's book illustrator. And
Particularly
so,
during those times back then, you're talking 70s and you're talking
yeah,
early time, right?
right. Yeah, I'm talking about the 70s, the 80s. And then also when he started, he was 16, right? And basically he became this prodigy child, because he's the first time someone, person of color, creating children's books. He's 16 years old. He lives in Bed-Stuy. So it was like a big deal. And now they wanted to, then he was on Like It Is, and they were asking him questions about the world. And he's like, I don't know. I'm 16, I'm 16 years old. I live in Bed-Stuy. Like, what are you asking me about, Martin Luther King or this person or that person? So it was a lot of pressure that he had, being an artist and at that time, and being an illustrator, and just him trying to figure out who he was and with himself. So I definitely give my father, like, I give him the praises that I don't want to say that I should have given him when he was younger, because I didn't know when I was younger, because I didn't know, right? I was just his kid, and this is what I grew up in. But I give him that's why I work so hard now to make sure his legacy stays alive, because I know I've seen him, working and staying up all night. So I know what he went through, and now I know what he felt. I just saw him doing it, but I didn't know what he was feeling. But now I know now I know. And then I know what he's feeling. And like, my brother also writes and illustrates children's books. And my brother had the honor of winning the Caldecott medal, which is like, he's the fourth Black person to ever have done that, which is ridiculous. It's an honor, but at the same time, it's ridiculous that out of all of the Black artists and illustrators, illustrators and artists in this writers and illustrators in this industry, it's only 4 who've received the award. So Javaka said that in his heart, my father is one of those people who received the award. He received an honor, but he never received the actual medal. So, he feels that my father received the medal.
Yeah, I think I just interviewed not too long ago one of the individuals that won that medal, Kwame Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's a really good friend of mine. He has a book out now called The Door of No Return, which is based in Ghana. Taryn and Laurel, when you hear Bweela talk about the importance of her father, the inspiration and the weight of his accomplishments in doing that work, given who he was, his status, and where he was in this world, and the societal narrative, what kind of weight does it put on the two of you to ensure that this story is lifted in a way that would truly honor what it was he was trying to accomplish and the messages he was trying to get out there and the work that Bweela is trying to advance?
Well, I don't know about Rel, but I don't know that I translated into weight. It's just a sense of pride and honor, and we are so incredibly grateful that we were given the opportunity to do this, and it's so important. In the first conversation we had with Bweela, she said many of the things that she's said here today, and about the importance of the relationship that she had with John, and John's relationship to the arts and with visual arts, this particular drawing, and so we really took that into consideration when putting the piece together, not just in making sure that we were as thoughtful in our research in putting the music together as John was in putting the world of Zimbabwe in the book together. We did a lot of research so that we could make sure that we stood up to that, right? But also just in this particular version, John makes an appearance, or at least the idea of him makes an appearance, so that we really get to see that he was the creator of this story, that this came from his heart, that it came from his work. So it's incredibly important. But I pressure no, pride yes.
Got you.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, it's so beautiful to hear some of this background story about John. We have a song, one of his main songs in the musical is called "And Then," and it's just a song where he is talking to one of his daughters about not being afraid just because of what the situation is or what the setting is, to keep going, to see what is beyond that, and encouraging his daughter and to just keep going. And so when I think about some of the things that we was talking about, just to kind of express to us about John, I think that it highlights what we have come together to show Mufaro in such a beautiful way that reflects the essence of her father, John, and some of the things that she spoke about in a great, great way. So yeah, no, not necessarily pressure, but it is a beautiful thing to hear some of the background about John and to know that we've kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit with some of the music that we've done. And so it was it's assuring more than kind of pressure that we feel for that, at least for me. Absolutely.
So the play debuts at Synchronicity here in Atlanta, Georgia in January. Give me some of the particulars about that for people who were encouraging to show up during the play.
Yes, the show opens January 27th. That is a Friday at Synchronicity Theater. And those are evening performances, and they're very fun because we do what's called PJs and play. So we invite the audience to come in their pajamas, and we give all the kids cookies and individually wrapped cookies here in COVID times. And everyone sits, and we sometimes allow the kids to kind of lay down on blankets in front of the stage. It's just such a great community building experience to come. It will run for 3 weeks after that and closes on, make sure I get that date right, on Sunday, the 29th.
Okay.
Of February.
Bweela, you excited?
I'm very excited. I'm excited for so many different reasons. I'm always excited for stuff like this. But one of the main reasons is because other theaters have done this play before, and everyone always asks me, when is it coming to Atlanta? When is it coming to Atlanta? When is it coming to Atlanta? So ta-da, it's coming to Atlanta. And so I'm gonna
come to Black Mecca. Gotta come to Black Mecca.
Yes, exactly. So I'm so excited that it's coming to Atlanta, and I get to tell everybody on Facebook and Instagram it's coming to Atlanta, and I get to go to Atlanta because I gotta go. I gotta be there. I gotta be there for the pajama day. I already got my pajamas in my head ready. I'm gonna design some pajamas, so I'm excited. I'm always excited.
I actually was thinking because one of the nights is our nights, and we're bringing our dads and their kids out for one of the nights that we're going to be doing attached to our program, Real Dads Read, where we're giving all our dads and all of our kids copies of the book. And I think we're going to have a panel discussion afterwards. But I'm also thinking, Bweela, man, that should be, y'all, I got to think about doing a Brooklyn night. Y'all got to think about just, getting all Brooklyn nights in the place. To really celebrate John. I'm sure you could fill that place up with people from Brooklyn and Atlanta.
Yes,
Definitely.
Right? That would be something else. If you decide to do it, let me know. I mean, I'll help promote it. I'll help push that out.
All right, let's do it then. We could do it. And also, I would love, I have no problem signing the books for everybody. Like the books that you're giving away, I have no problem signing them because I think that's important. And it's fun. So if we could work it out, I don't mind signing the books.
Well, it's awesome. The story is awesome. I love the relationship and the stories you told about your dad. I'm so proud of you, and I'm sure he is smiling on you, watching you carry his work and whatever pain he had in the midst of doing what he was doing. It's gone now.
Yeah.
It's Mark. It is live, it's breathing, it's moving, and it's impacting. So I honor you for doing that work. It's just an honorable work when children honor their parents with their life. And so to Taryn and Laurel, the two of you as well, I'm sure you have done great jobs, with this way. I can't wait, to see it and to help elevate it and move it. What's your aspirations for it, Bweela? Around the world? Africa, when's the Africa debut? When we going?
Yes,
when we going?
Exactly. We're going to Zimbabwe first. That's the first stop. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I want it to be on Broadway. I want it to be on Broadway. I mean, I've had people say that it's like better than Lion King. So let's do it. And then plus, it's not Disney, right? It's not. So it's us. So I think it's better. So definitely Broadway. Worldwide tour, Africa. We start in Zimbabwe and take it all the way around. So
Mufaro versus Mufasa. That's a thing. Mufaro versus.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
seeing that in the lights. I'm seeing that come together.
Yes. I mean, come on, Disney. We know who Disney is, right? So come on. So we got to do better than that.
Absolutely. Listen, we got to find a way to get to Tyler Perry. Got to get him out there for one of these nights. Would be something that he can make that happen.
Yes,
exactly. Can make that happen with a phone call easily. Yeah. So I'm gonna put a prayer on top of that and breathe that to life.
I'll do my Kundalini and my Reiki. So
okay,
we're gonna get them.
All right. Well, thank each of you for being guests on I Am Dad podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Thank you for all of my listeners. Make sure you go to our website at iamdadpodcast.com. Make sure you leave your comments and please subscribe. It's important that you subscribe to the podcast because it helps with our algorithms. But before I leave, I want to do this, and I forgot this. Bweela, give people, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can go to my father. You can come to my page, but you can also go to my father's page. So if you go to my page, it's Bweela Steptoe. If you go to my father's page, it's John L. Steptoe. Either on both Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's all the same. Bweela Steptoe. Bweela Steptoe or John Steptoe. And there's also, I have a non-for-profit I started in honor of him, and that's the John Lewis Steptoe Cultural Center. So you can put that in also. But even if you just put John Steptoe or Bweela Steptoe, you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all of those social media.
Okay, and we'll make sure we put all these links on our website. So if y'all don't remember all of that, just go to iamdadpodcast.com. All of those links will be there. Taryn and Laurel, contact information and how can we get in touch with Synchronicity?
Yeah, you can go to the Synchronicity Head website. That is just www.synchrotheater.com, and that's theater with an R-E, not an E-R. And yeah, you can find the details about the project there, the open date, you get tickets to it. So you should definitely stop back by the website to do that. And then you can find me personally. I'm on Facebook, and you can get in touch with me through the Synchro website as well. I happen to be the director of education here.
Okay. All right. Laurel, composer, music director extraordinaire. You're frozen.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Rel. Just drop the LE. You can find me on at Facebook and Instagram at Rel Ross. Well, Facebook Rel Ross, and on Instagram at I am Rel Ross. Yeah, those are the two places. Or you can email me at laurelross@yahoo.com.
Okay. And thank you again, everybody, for joining I Am Dad podcast. Till next week. Enjoy your week and God bless. See you next time.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting iamdadpodcast.com. That's iamdadpodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am Dad, period.